The Play is the Thing, with your host, Judy Sleed. Today's guest, McKenzie Willis, children's book author, educator, songwriter, and a smile that lights up the room. Now here's Judy.
Well, Jeff, you are so right.
Thank you, Jeff.
Your smile really lights up the room.
Well, I have a lot to smile for.
You're a very talented young man.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, and you're also a singer.
Yes, yes.
That's how I know about you. You're in a chorus with my daughter,
Yes.
who lives upstate New York.
Yes, that's
and
right.
you are from New Paltz.
Yes, yes. I used to live in Manhattan before I moved to New Paltz.
Yeah.
And
Is that where you grew up?
no, I was born in Tennessee.
Tennessee.
Yes, yes. About 27 miles east of Memphis.
And when did you get to New York?
Moved to New York in 66.
Why?
Because, well, I went to high school in Tennessee,
Yes.
and then I went to my first 2 years of college was in Nashville, and then I moved to New York, and worked with the New York City Department of Social Services for about 3 or 4 years, and then decided that I didn't want to be in New York City anymore, and I wanted to go back to college. So I started looking for some colleges, and I found SUNY New Paltz.
Oh, that's a good college.
Oh, it's a great college, great college. So I graduated from there, and fortunately got a job working there. Graduated in May, and I got a job working there in August. And I worked there as a counselor with this special ed program. And I worked there for a number of years. And in the meantime, I was still writing, music, songs. And then got a job offer with the state education department in Albany. And I moved there for about 12 years.
So
But
you
came
said
back to
you-
New Paltz.
You started writing songs. How did that, is your family musical?
My mom was. I was in the church choir, and she was very musical.
Do you play an instrument?
No, I don't play an instrument, unfortunately. I try to play guitar, but I don't do very well. I would not dare play in public. But
So you say you write songs. That
I'm a
mean you-
lyricist. I'm a lyricist.
lyricist.
Yes, yes,
Uh-huh.
yes. And I did, after we moved to New York City, I started working with Leon Pendarvis, who was the musical director for Saturday Night Live. He and I wrote songs together. And I'd do the lyrics and the melodies, and he would do the music.
So, but you started writing lyrics before you met this man?
Sure,
or
sure.
You
yes.
were writing
when I was in Nashville.
with,
yes.
with somebody else?
No, I just
You just
did it
wrote
alone.
poems.
Did it alone. Yes, yes, basically.
Yeah.
And
So, how did it come about that you had written this beautiful book? It's called The Rainbow Forest.
Well,
How did it come about?
that came about because, first of all, because of our two sons, and whose pictures are in the back of the book, Jared and Corey.
Okay.
We
The
lived
two
on.
sons
Yes,
here.
it's Corey on the top and Jared on the bottom.
How old were they when this picture was taken?
Corey was the youngest one, was about 4, and Jared was about 7.
Okay.
Yes, and so they were the inspiration for the story, because on Main Street in New Paltz, that's where we lived, but from the front of the yard all the way to the back extended to the next street. So it was the only house in New Paltz on Main Street that had a yard that extended from the front all the way to the next street, and it was all woods. It was like a forest in the city.
Oh.
And growing up in the South, you know, I loved picking berries and chasing butterflies and dragonflies, and that's what I used to do with the kids. So I got to relive my childhood chasing butterflies and dragonflies. And then at night, you know, I would write little things about what happened during the day. It was, and you know, and I would tell stories to the kids at night about what happened during the day. But I would, you know, go a little bit, elaborate, go a little bit further than what really happened. And that's how the book came to be. And it was, it just kept, you know, going on and on. It took a long period of time to do it.
So every time you told them a story, you had written it down, and then you had loads of little notes.
Yes,
right?
yes.
And then one day you collected them all and tried to make a book out of it.
And make a book, yes. And it took a period of time to do it.
Yes.
But, you know, there was no rush. It was fun doing it. And when I would, you know, talk about what happened during the day, and I would add little bits to it, the kids loved it, you know. And I thought, well, why not just continue on with it, even after they're grown up, you know.
And let other children enjoy the stories.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
You know, because there is information in the book. There's a science-related information in the book. Say, for instance, the pond nymph morphing into a dragonfly. That really happens. That is scientifically true. And I thought, let's put that in the book and make it entertaining as well as educational. And it's much easier. I've found, because I've always worked with kids and in education, but I've found that it's much easier to teach kids if they're having fun learning, if they're being entertained. So I thought if I add some entertaining things in the book along with educational information, it would be much easier for them to conceptualize it. Yes. And when I do readings, I ask the audience to be involved. You know, I involve the kids, you know, and the parents and the teachers, and especially when I'm singing the songs about characters in the book, and everybody participates. You know, when I get to the part where Flutter the butterfly is dancing on the spider web, I ask the kids, you know, is there anyone here who thinks that they could be a butterfly dancing on a spider web? And if you do, come on up and dance, you know. And they love it. They do it, you know. Sometimes the teachers and parents participate. You know, they're dancing and we're all dancing and having fun.
Yeah,
you know.
that's a wonderful way
of
telling a story.
Yeah, I have fun doing it. And, you know, the main message in the book, as you very well know, is about bullying. Bullying. There's no mention of the word bullying, but the message is very clear, because that's a big problem in our school system. Has been for years, but it seems to be getting worse. But the message I wanted to get across, in addition to encouraging kids to read from, you know, pre-kindergarten to 8 years old, was to know that it's important to share with others, care about others, and respect others. And if you don't, there are consequences, you know. And so I wanted to get that message over. And when I'm done doing the readings, I always ask, you know, what the highlights were and what they think. And the feedback has been very favorable. You know.
Well, I would love to hear about it. You have illustrations here, so let's start with the first one.
Okay.
So what we're going to do, put it up here, and we got a close-up, and you're going to talk about it?
Okay. Okay, this here is the old man of the forest, who was a beekeeper. And there was a place in the forest, in the rainbow forest, where nobody would go because they were afraid. And the sunbeam, which you see shining down through the tree and into the face of the keeper, the sunbeam decided, well, you know, there's some place in this forest where nobody is playing or having fun. And he wanted everybody to play and have fun in the rainbow forest. And to enjoy the nature, you know, the insects, the butterflies, the dragonflies, and the berries. So, but there was a place nobody would go. So the sunbeam said, you know, why is nobody there? And then he thought, that's where Winston the Wicked Dragon lives. The blueberry fields are there. He loves the blueberries, and he won't share with anybody. He spits fire at anybody who goes near the blueberry fields. And he decided he needed to find somebody to make the forest safe for everybody. So he found the old man, and who was sleeping underneath this tree. So he blew a feather out of a bird's nest down to wake him up, because he didn't want to talk to him and confront him, because he'd never seen him before. The old man had never seen the sunbeam before, and he didn't want to frighten him. So he blew a feather down. The feather landed on the old man's nose and woke him up. So he jumps up, and he doesn't know what's going on. He says, what was that? You know, and then he thought, well, must have been one of those busy bees again. And then the sunbeam said, no, it was me. And the sunbeam proceeded to tell him he came to see him because he wants to make him the keeper of the rainbow forest. And he said, there's a twig right next to where you were lying. Pick the twig up and squeeze it 3 times, and you'll have a magic sword, which is what happened. And once he did that, he had the magic sword. So he was then deemed the keeper of the rainbow forest, so that every time there was trouble, he squeezed the sword 3 times, and crystal sparkles would come out and correct the problem. So the next part is, this is Benny, who's 6 years old, and his 3-year-old sister. And they're in their backyard in a place called Snowguard, which spells dragons backwards.
Oh.
And so they were chasing a butterfly. And this is Flutter the butterfly that they were chasing. And they chasing the butterfly, they every time they get close to it, it would fly away, land on a sunflower. But then they would try and catch it, it would fly away. So they kept chasing it till they got tired, and the butterfly went into the lane, far down the lane and into the woods. So they were so tired from chasing the butterfly, they decided to lie down and take a nap. Not realizing it, they were in the rainbow forest, near the blueberry fields, which is where Winston the Wicked Dragon lived. So as
Look how scared they are.
Yes. And as they lay sleeping, they started to feel a warm breeze that started to get hotter and hotter, woke them up, and then Winston confronted them and told them that he knew they were there to steal his blueberries. And I have a Winston a dragon's head that was made for me by my wife. And so I wear that when I get to this part of the story. I make believe I'm Winston the Dragon with a big dragon head
So
on.
you actually reenact the story.
Yes.
Yes.
And here's the dragon head here. So what I do is put this on. Excuse me for looking silly, but I put this on.
Yeah.
And I make believe that I'm Winston the Wicked Dragon. And when it gets to that part of the story where he's confronting the kids, I go like this, like I'm the dragon. What are you doing here? Do you know who I am? You're here to steal my blueberries. Anybody comes to steal my blueberries gets in a big trouble with me. And the kids are kids are terrified.
Yeah, the kids would love that. That's gorgeous. Gorgeous.
So,
yeah.
and the concept from this came from at the New Paltz daycare center. Which is where we used to send our kids when they were little. I did a reading there, and the first reading I did there, they loved it, but the next reading, after I did the first reading, the director there said to the kids, let's make McKenzie a dragon's head.
Oh.
And so the next time he comes, he can wear it. So next time I went, I didn't even know it. Next time I get there, they give me the dragon's head. And it was kind of, very fragile. So we used the concept to do this one. This was much more, it's easier to use.
Yeah, it is a very good idea. Can
Yeah.
you take
So,
that off?
so what happens is then Winston is intimidating the kids and bullying them, and then the keeper of the forest comes up because there's trouble, and he knows there's trouble. He comes up and he tells them to stop, and he won't stop. And he says to him, if you don't stop, you're going to be very sorry. And he still won't stop. He says, well, you're just a little old man. You don't tell me what to do. So Winston's, he's still spitting fire. Now he's spitting more fire. Then the keeper says, you're going to be very sorry. So he squeezes the sword 3 times, and these crystal sparkles come out with such force they drive the flames back up the dragon's nose and makes him sneeze.
Oh,
and
look at that. He's not looking so fierce
he is terrified because he goes, the force of the sneeze makes him fly over the treetops and among the clouds, and he's floating around helplessly. And he can't get back.
Him.
Yes. So then the next part is Ellie and Benny. After the dragon's flown away, there's a song about the dragon being blown away, and I can play that or sing a little bit of it later on if you'd like. But what happens is that after the dragon's blown away, they are going further into the forest. They come upon this butterfly, or actually they come upon this spider web. They've never seen a spider web that big before, and this is Ida the spider.
Ida the spider.
And so she sees them looking, and she speaks to them, introduces herself, and they tell her that they were looking for Flutter the butterfly, and because they were chasing her, and they got lost. And as they're saying that, the butterfly falls down in the web, and she says, well, this is what happens when butterflies drink too much nectar from the honeysuckle flower. And they drink so much nectar from the honeysuckle flower, they can't fly away. They try to fly, and they fall down. And my web saves them. So they're afraid. They think, she's going to eat the butterfly, but she says no. And so she rolls the crystal dewdrop. After the butterfly is so tired from trying to get free, it falls over from exhaustion. And then Ida the spider rolls a crystal dewdrop over across the web and underneath Flutter the butterfly's foot. And when that happens, the butterfly jumps up and starts dancing all over the web because of the magic in the crystal dewdrop. She dances all over the web, and I've written a song about that, and there's a dance. And when she finishes dancing, she takes a bow and flies away. And
wonderful.
And that's the dragon is begging the sunbeam to come back to the rainbow forest. And he says the only way you can come back to the rainbow forest is you have to be kind to everybody, share with everyone, and give a special treat to Ellie and Benny, the ones that you were intimidating and bullying. And so, and he says, I'll do anything you say, just let me come back. He says, well, keeper of the forest has to be the one that says you can come back. So the keeper of the forest says to the sunbeam later that he could come back, but he comes back as a pond nymph, an ugly pond nymph.
Oh.
And what happens with ugly pond nymphs, like he landed in the water while Ellie and Benny were playing the pond bubble game with the rainbow fishes. But when they see this pond nymph eating a water bug, they get really frightened and they try and go out of the water. And he begs them to stay. The pond nymph begs him to stay and tells them that if they watch him grow up, he'll be kind to them and be a special friend. And they stay and they watch him, and he goes through a morphing period. And if you can just let me see the book. What happens is that he becomes a dragonfly. And that's what happens to pond nymphs. Pond nymphs become dragonflies. They morph into dragonflies. So that's some scientific fact in the story. And this is what the pond nymph looked like as he's about to become a dragonfly. And so,
Very interesting.
and when he becomes a dragonfly, he takes Ellie and Benny and flies them all over the rainbow forest and flies them to the blueberry fields. And while they're eating blueberries, he's flying around. And they ask him if he wants blueberries. He says, no, while you're eating blueberries, I'll be chasing and eating mosquitoes. So what he was doing was he was chasing and eating mosquitoes while they're eating blueberries. And because dragonflies love mosquitoes. They really do eat mosquitoes. So when you see dragonflies darting about, they're chasing and eating mosquitoes. So with him eating the mosquitoes, it keeps the mosquitoes from biting Ellie and Benny. So he's protecting them. So he goes from being a wicked dragon to being a kind,
Useful
caring
creature.
person. Yes. And
Well,
so
this is wonderful, and the name of the book is The Rainbow
Tales of
Forest.
the-
Tales of the Rainbow Forest,
yes.
written by McKenzie Willis, yours truly, and illustrations by Rick Holland.
Yes.
So, did you do the illustrations?
No, Rick did the illustrations. I told him what I wanted, and he gave me exactly what I wanted, and even a little bit more. So-
And who had? You had written, or somebody had written music to it, and I listened to it, and some
Yeah.
of them are really very pretty and melodious,
Yeah, well,
and
thank
nice
you. Thank
rhythm
you.
to it.
Thank you.
It's too bad we don't have time to listen to all the songs.
Yeah. Well,
Well,
the
what
music.
is your plan for all this? What are you going to do with all this?
What I'm going to do is I'm going to be doing more readings at the libraries, and I'm currently doing a play version of it. I belong to a group called SCBWI. It's a Society for Children's Book Writers and Illustrators, and one of the members is a very successful playwright. And she and I talked about this, and she said this would be good as a play. And so we're working on that to make it into a play now.
And where would that be performed?
First we're gonna start at one of the colleges, and we're gonna try and get it into SUNY New Paltz. But it'll be performed primarily at schools throughout the country. She has 3 plays now that are being produced at schools and throughout the U.S. and Canada.
Oh.
And her name is Lori Bryant. She's a teacher. So she and I are working on this, and once we get it done, we'll have it into schools all over, and that's one of the things we want to do with it. And I want to get it into the educational system.
Right, and you are currently you had a reading in West Hampton, or?
I'm going to be reading in West Hampton. I did a reading in West Hampton's Bright Beginnings, the children's center, the daycare center. I did that about 3 months ago, but I'll be doing a reading at the West Hampton Library next month, and I'll be doing another reading at Bridgehampton Library next month as well. And I'll be doing a reading Saturday at Olana. I don't know if you're familiar with Olana. It's in Hudson. It's this big art-oriented.
Where?
It's in Hudson. It's called Olana. O-L-A-N-A.
Oh, so you do a lot of traveling.
Yes.
Do you drive?
Yes. So far, I'm just in New York, but I want to expand. I want to
Yes.
go further out because I'm self-published, and you have to work really hard when you're self-published.
Right.
I'm looking so hard for an agent. If I could just find a literary agent, I would be really.
And who
really,
did you T-shirt? Can we have a close-up on that T-shirt?
This is obviously Winston the Wicked Dragon, Ellie and Benny, and the Keeper of the Rainbow
Yes.
Forest. There is a group. It's called Backwoods. It's in New Paltz. The guys who own the company graduated from New Paltz, and my youngest son is good friends with them and is part of the company. They did the T-shirt. They do T-shirts.
So how many did you print?
I did about, I think 30.
30.
Yes, yes, and I've sold some because
You could
kids
sell it
like
with
'em.
the books.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
As well as a musical and
Yeah.
audio CD. Quickly, the music for the audio CD came about. There's a gentleman, Gus Mancini, who is cousin of Henry.
Oh, cousin of Henry, I know
Yes,
that name.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
We went in the studio and did the audio version of the book. Okay,
Yeah.
did the audio version of the book with Janice Pendarvis, who won an Oscar this year. And Gus heard it from the guy who owns the studio, who has a band that Gus is in. Gus heard it. Gus calls me up and he says, "McKenzie, I'm Gus Mancini, and I heard your narration of the book," and he said, "It just moved me to write music for it." He says, I've been looking for years to find something to put my music to," and he said, "This was it." I didn't even know he had written the music. And I was so touched by that.
McKenzie, you are an amazing person, and I have to thank my daughter Judy for getting here.
I thank her too.
I loved hearing your story about
Thank you.
the rainbow forest and the way you presented it, and all the work you put into it. And I wish you a lot of success, which I'm sure you will, because you're going about it the right way.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate your having me here. This means a lot to me. Thank you so much.
Really?
I really
Well,
appreciate
I
it.
enjoyed hearing, and we'll talk more. I'm
Okay.
sorry this is only a half-hour
okay,
show.
okay.
I would have loved to hear all the music. As I said, I listened to it,
Right,
and it was really nice.
Yeah. Well,
So
thank
I
you.
want to thank, this time I didn't go to Lupita, I just did my own hair. I want to thank all my underwriters, and I want to thank Lena, and I want to thank my son Jeff for helping me do this show. And you could see me on YouTube. Not this show yet, you have to wait till I upload it.
Oh, thank you.
But sometimes people recognize me and they compliment me that I have a good show.
I could see that.
Yesterday,
I could understand
was in
that.
the doctor's office. We are off the air. Yesterday in the doctor's